Welcome to Spinning Back Clique, where each week here at MMA Junkie, we take a spin through the biggest stories in MMA. And on today's episode, Charles Oliveira still has it. What a performance in Rio. Conor McGregor has been suspended for 18 months. We got the deets. RDR versus Brendan Allen. What are the stakes this Saturday in Vancouver? Hello, everyone. Gorgeous George here on the con. And look at the distinguished panel we have for you today. Goes from MMA Junkie Radio. He's here in Las Vegas, the fight capital of the world. And if there's a gym capital of the world, it might be down in Miami, where my man Danny Segura checks in from the 305. Nolan King rounds out the panel. He's the Boston shot caller. He's in Boston. Ghost is going to double up on the ones and twos. But before we get started, hit the like button, please, right now. It triggers the algorithm and it helps us out. And it's the least you could do, honestly, really. All right, let's get started, guys. Chucky Olives, in my opinion, reached a legendary status in Brazil. He now stands amongst some of the best Brazilian fighters ever. Rodrigo Nogueira, Vanderlei Silva, Mauricio Shogun Rua, Fabricio Verdun, Alexandra Pantoja. And no, by the way, I'm not tripping. To be fair, I think there's another level still where we think of Anderson Silva, Royce Gracie, Jose Aldo, Chris Cyborg, and Alex Pereira. But man, just to be included in those names, right? I've been buzzing all over this weekend over that performance, and now I want to hear it from the stars of the show, the panel. And Nolan King, it's been a while since we had you. I want you to start off. What was your reaction to Charles Oliveira's big win in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil?
Yeah, I was blown away. I think that I thought that Mateusz Gamrot was a pretty tough test, and Charles Oliveira made him look easy. From beginning to end, it was totally dominant, and it wasn't just, he smothered him. No, he was going for submission after submission, grabbing an arm, grabbing a leg, grabbing a neck, whatever he could get a hold of to try to get a Gamrot out of there as quickly as possible. And while Gamrot survived, he could not do so for very long in the second round. Just a really cool moment for Oliveira. I think them putting him in that slot was fantastic too. In the day and age where we seem to have a lot of monotone cards and apex events, and sometimes fighters don't necessarily, especially of his stature, right? He's a big name. He's somebody they probably want to throw on pay-per-views as a supporting act or a headliner if he challenges for the title again. But for them to put him as kind of the star attraction in his home country, you saw what that environment was like. You saw how special that was, and I think it made that moment even that much more memorable. So he's somebody that we can never give enough praise to, I think, at this point. Even when he loses, he comes back and just shows how unique and elite that he is. I'm excited to see where he goes forward, and I think not that I ever ruled him out, but I think he might have even more left in the tank than I thought. So good for him. That was just an amazing performance, and it showed, I think, really just how special he is, and that next level that you were talking about, George. He's one of the rare ones that we have right now in the active space of MMA.
Nolan, everything that you said, I agree with 100%. Now, there's a little pushback on one thing, though. You said you liked him being put on that card. Now, I know things worked out nicely, trust me. But when it was initially made, I was like, holy cow, this guy got knocked out viciously in June. You know how usually we say, that guy could use 6 months off. That's one big headache he's got. Did you like the fight booking, even going back to when we heard it coming off the Topuria KO?
I think that brain health is something that sometimes is unfortunately, even by myself, overlooked when it comes to pace of schedule. So I will concede that point to you, but I think for the UFC to put a big star, it kind of gave me a little bit of a nostalgia feel, in that it used to be, I felt like that you would, for every card, there would be, at the top, the main event, there would be something that would be very vitally important to the division. And so to kind of get back to that, even when it was Fiziev, that would have been a fantastic headliner for a fight night. That would, especially in front of a full crowd, that would have been one of the better main events that we've had on a fight night in a while. So that's where my excitement stemmed from. But I understand the point, about him getting rinsed so quickly against Topuria, essentially, and then having to come back and turn around. I fully understand that argument as well.
And that's, Danny, what made it exciting was, Oliveira put all that aside and was not in any way protecting that chin, being conservative. Man, that guy went out there and lit the place up. 16,000 showed up to the arena. He gave him everything he had, threw caution to the wind.
I mean, what else do you expect from a shoot the box fighter, right? Like these guys train hard, they fight hard, and they live by the sword and die by the sword, and that's exactly what we got from Charles Oliveira. And Nolan made a great point. I think a lot of people, including myself, we kind of discarded a little bit Charles Oliveira because he was coming off a pretty bad knockout. But I was very surprised with how good he looked, and there's plenty of gas left in the tank for him. Not saying to be champion or maybe I don't know, but certainly, he's still among the elite, and yeah, that was surprising to see. So, shouts out to Charles Oliveira, and like you said, he didn't fight hiding his chin or anything. The chin is still very much there. It's just Ilia Topuria is Ilia Topuria. So,
this is true. All right, guys, let's get your reaction to this epic main event in Rio de Janeiro, where Charles Oliveira defeated Mateusz Gamrot.
I think it was a 10 performance by Charles Oliveira. I think it's one where if you were to point at this particular guy that showed up this night and match them up against anyone, you would feel like he has a very good shot at beating them. But I was kind of one of those guys that thought this is the beginning of the end, his exit, the last couple fights. But honestly, I did not expect him to kind of go through Gamrot the way he did. I mean, he was just one step ahead in every instance from get-go to the end of the fight. His patience in the fight, I think, was pretty tremendous. There were times where I think George and we were screaming at the television saying, do this, do that. But he was so cool, calm, and collective that whole fight. It was really, really impressive. And, I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was fighting at home that brought that out of him, if it was his opponent. I really couldn't tell you. But this guy right here that showed up, if he showed up every night, every time, there would be a lot of trouble for a lot of these guys. It's just that upper echelon that he has problems with. And so now going forward, that's where it's going to be interesting. How does the UFC handle a fighter like that?
And he has been the upper echelon at one point, but that's the question. Is he still upper echelon, Danny? Can he get there? In other words, be a champ again?
So I'll say this. I do think he's still a top 5 guy. Like with the old guard of Chandler, Gagey, Poirier, Oliveira that like plagued the top 5 for many years, and they really were only fighting each other, this and that. We've seen as the years have gone by, those people either retire or just kind of start fading out. I feel like Charles Oliveira, I expected him more or less to be fading out at this moment in time, but I don't think that's the case. Will that come around in a year and a half? Maybe. But I think right now, at this point in time, he's among the best lightweights in the world, among the elite, which is the top 5. It just so happens that, at least in my opinion, the gap between the contenders in the top 5 and the champion, it just seems like it's quite wide. But look, even against Sarukian, who in my opinion is the number 1 contender, last time they fought, which wasn't that long ago, like a year ago, a year and a half ago, he almost subbed him. If that would have been 5 rounds, he would have had more time. You do wonder how that fight would have gone. So yeah, Charles Oliveira is still a top 5 guy. I just don't think he beats Ilia Topuria though.
And that's the question, Nolan. Ilia Topuria is at the top. So yeah, I don't know if we want to see it again, but if somehow, whether it's Gagey, and I'm hearing those rumors, or someone gets Topuria out of the way, all of a sudden the door is open, because he has a win over Gagey.
Yeah, I mean, I think the passage of time has proven sometimes rematches, or, not necessarily even a rematch, but a fighter who seemed out of the title picture all of a sudden is back in it because everybody round robin eliminates each other or something. So I think he'll always be within an arm's reach of title contention. I think in the immediate, nobody I think wants to see that because of how recent it was and how quickly it went down. But I think, if the title changes hands, or, I don't know, it just, I guess we'll see what happens.
Yeah, our minds will explode if we try and figure out the puzzle, because we don't know injuries, how frequently they fight. It's true, man. It's a tough one. But so, Ghost, let me give you that assignment. What would you do with Oliveira next, knowing he's probably not next for the champ? The champ will probably either fight. I'm really hearing Gaethje. I don't know if these two guys, they know a lot more than me, can hear if they can co-sign on those rumors or not. But Hamlet, I mean, what would you do with Oliveira at this point? Probably after the holidays and in that CBS Paramount Plus era that starts in January.
I kind of liked his call out, the BMF and doing that, something like that, because You don't want him. It really depends. Like if you're the UFC, how you look at him, how you want to promote him. And in Rio, he's incredible, right? The fans go absolutely nuts. In the US, he doesn't speak very much English. He's already had a lot of shots, but he's still valuable. You know, I think he still puts butts in seats. So I would say I kind of like his suggestion of maybe the BMF, something like that, where it's still high profile, but it's not getting in the way of everything that's going on. Because let's be honest, aside from the top guys, he's eliminating everybody else. And you want to see some of these other guys get a chance as well.
It's like a sergeant at arms handling business for Topuria, for
He's
sure.
a bouncer at that club.
Exactly. Nolan, how about Mateusz Gamrot? Look, he took the fight on late notice, and Oliveira made him look like you just don't belong, but he does. He's only got 4 losses, like 25 wins. He's legit, man. He's actually beaten Sarukian, and if you look at his hit list, it's pretty decent. This is obviously a setback, so we got to give him a pretty decent name. And again, probably in the CBS Paramount era. We're already in October. Let's not mess with December or nothing like that. But what do you think would be a good assignment for Mateusz Gamrot?
Yeah, it's tough because like looking at the division right now, I think a lot of the guys are kind of tied up, right? And then you end up running into the issue of it sounds like him and Moicano would fight each other maybe, but they also kind of train together and are friendly. So I think they would maybe try to avoid that. So I don't know. It's tough because you got Hooker and Sarukian fighting pretty soon. You've got, like you said, Gaethje seems like he's kind of aligned. You got Max in there. You've got Islam's obviously moving up. So it's kind of tough to say. I think he's going to wait and see the division play out a little bit before there's some matchmaking for him. But I think his stock, I wouldn't say went down, but I think he just kind of is where he was when he came in. You know, short notice against a really tough guy. Everybody's talking about how good Charles looked. It's not like, well, Gamrot really, shit the bed and didn't look good. So I think he's got to kind of wait and see, but something in this, something he's sitting at number 8, I believe, or we'll see where he is after the rankings come out this week. But something in that vicinity. I don't think I can really name drop somebody right now just because everybody seems to be a little bit tied up. And I don't think the options that are there are going to be what he gets.
And there's a lot of guys at ATT. Sarukian's even there,
Yep.
part-time kind of, but he's there. Gamrot's there.
Grant
Dawson's
Dawson
there
right?
for a long time. Yeah, Grant Dawson for a long time. Dustin Poirier was there. How about a big shout out to Lazy Bed, Steve Williams, 240s, Joseph Boza, Masters of the Universe Classic. These are all names you can find in our chat. You can join the chat and be a part of the show, leaving a comment or question. The best ones get on the show. And also, if your YouTube's ever down or anything crazy happens, you can come in through Facebook. Sometimes you start a job and they block Facebook, but they allow YouTube or vice versa. So you have different ways of sneaking in here. And I see some people coming in from Facebook. Here's a good question. I'm going to give it to Danny. Joseph Boza asks, could he have done that versus Fiziev? Who knows? That was the best result he could have gotten when Gamrot was put in this fight. But Danny, I told Goes I don't know anyone that was going to stop Oliveira that night. But do you see something in the Fiziev matchup that maybe Oliveira would have, maybe I guess been less hesitant, or there could have been a possible different outcome?
I think we would have gotten obviously more striking. That's an obvious one, but I think the end result would have been the same. The strategy would be, close the distance, take them down, get the back, and get the rear naked choke. That would have remained the same, and I think he would have done it. The way Oliveira looked, I think he does that to absolutely everyone outside of the top 5 of the UFC lightweight division. So, look, there's a reason why he's 18-0 now, fighting in Brazil, right? The Brazilian or home soil. What do we want to call this mythical fighter? There's Sea Level Kane. There's like Motivated BJ. What name do we give Charles Oliveira fighting in Brazil?
Carioca Charles? I don't know.
We got to work on that one.
We got to work on that one.
He's changed. He doesn't even know which nickname he wants to go by. So how are we supposed to?
Yeah, the Predator. Come on, the Bronx. It's the Bronx.
Yeah.
I don't know. But anyways, mythical creature. Like, you're fighting Oliveira in Brazil. Get ready to take an L. So.
Yeah. All right. We're going to talk about Figueiredo and Montel Jackson in just a sec, but I wanted to run it by the panel. Did you guys like my levels? Minotauro, Vanderlei. I mean, those guys, imagine how hard it was for me to say there's another level above them. But man, what Nunes has done, Cyborg, Pereira, it seems like it's eclipsed those legends, Anderson, Aldo as well. I still got Chucky Olives with that first group, but what you guys think of my levels?
Well, yeah, I was ready to jump on you when I thought you were just naming the best Brazilian fighters ever, and you were leaving out like the first 5 that came to my mind. So no, it makes sense. I think Pantoja could maybe sneak up if he keeps winning. But no, that was well done.
Is he official, Nolan, for Joshua Van? I mean, we know that.
Yeah, I mean, that's the fight. Dana White has an announcement today. I don't know if that's going to be part of it. I have no knowledge of it, but given that that's the only event that doesn't have any fights officially announced through the UFC through the end of the year, I would assume if it is fight related, a positive fight related announcement that Dana's going to give us today, I think we're going to get some clarity on that pay-per-view card in Vegas in December.
Because what we don't know is the main event, right? That's the rumor for the co-main, but we don't know of a main event.
Yeah, I mean, that could be the main event. Who knows? I think that there was some talk of maybe Volkanovski fighting somebody on that card. But I haven't really heard much else since then. Okay.
All right. Let's talk about Figueiredo versus Montel Jackson. I was a little disappointed. I'll stick with you on this one, Nolan. I thought this could be Jackson's coming out party. You know, finally a name and a former champ at flyweight, but still, Figueiredo's 4-2 at bantamweight, and he just froze.
Yeah, it was weird, man. It was one of those fights I really don't have many complaints about the concept of the booking, right? Like when you saw that get announced as a supporting act, you're like, okay, that's kind of like intriguing. You've got the former champ, somebody who's trying to build in a second weight class, and then you've got a guy that's really kind of flown under the radar and has looked good. And so I really liked the matchup, but then when they got in there, you know, it was not good. It was 15 minutes of like that fight happened, as we like to say. I don't want to say it really decreased Figueiredo's stock, but it also made me pretty skeptical about him fighting guys in the top of that division in the future. Maybe it was a style thing. I know Montel, from some of the people I've talked to, is really tricky just because of his like range. His hands are the size of bigger than Francis Ngannou's. Like, there's a lot of weird things, right? So maybe there was some stuff in his attack that kind of threw Figueiredo off, some of the looks he was giving him, but I wasn't impressed. I don't think the crowd was impressed. I don't think, I think all of us are in agreement that fight kind of sucked. So I guess we'll have to see what's next. But yeah, that was not, even though he won, I think it was about as bad of a performance as you can have stock wise with winning.
Goes, did Figgy win or did Jackson lose?
That's a good question. Well, for one, there's just no way around it. Jackson did lose. I mean, he had no adjustments. He was just as flat as I've ever seen a fighter come out, from
with an 8-inch reach advantage too, and
use it
back pocket that he wasn't interested in using just to change it up or something.
Yeah, he was just kind of like a zombie out there. He just would go out and do the same thing and it wouldn't work, and they try and motivate him and nothing. And that's not the Jackson that we've seen in the past. He's definitely looked different. Figueiredo can do this to some fighters, but like Nolan said, I don't think it was Figueiredo's greatest night either. It just, maybe the moment got to him.
Danny, what do we do with Figueiredo? Again, former champ, a big name. When you see him on a card, you're like, all right, Figgy's fighting. Sometimes he's just as bad. Not more often than not. He's usually a very, very decent fighter. But what would you do next with this guy? He's claiming the champ hasn't beaten me yet, but I don't know that we're there yet, and I don't know that this performance catapulted him.
And I don't know if we'll get there at this point in time. He's 35, I believe, or 37, might be a little older. Somebody can help me confirming that. Sorry?
I'll look it up.
So the age is playing against them, and he didn't have the same sort of bounce back performance that we saw against who's that, your dog?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
No, you're good. I think he has a lot to say about Figueiredo's performance. Were you watching the fight with him?
He was watching the replay of the Figueiredo fight. That's why he's like,
he's having like PTSD right now. But no, like I don't know what you do with him because like with Charles Oliveira, like for example, like yeah, you might not like his chances of becoming champion, but boy, like can I think of so many like fun matchups with him. With Figueiredo, like Nolan said, yeah, he won, he got the bounce back, but at the same time, it's like, who are you really excited for in terms of like matching him up? I don't know. I think you wait and see how the division pans out. There's a couple fights happening that are important at 135. Specifically, in the card that we'll talk about that will be going down this Saturday. And then you kind of take it from there. But yeah, there's not a clear name, at least for me, that jumps out that I'm like, man, I need to see this fight.
I just found out he's actually a Figueiredo fan, so he's kind of bummed out that we're crapping on him.
Got you.
So that's why he's tripping there.
Somebody said that Steve Williams in the chat said it freaked out his cats. And it reminded me when we first started our show back when we were Tag Radio. George had this one intro where the song started with an airplane that just comes like really strong. And I remember that week, so many subscribers emailing going, that scared everybody in our office. We all freaked out. They thought planes were coming. Do you remember that, George?
Oh, yeah, I do.
Yeah.
Apologies, folks. The dog's usually very well behaved, but either that or maybe his heart's broken like mine because Fred Warner is out for the year. 49ers linebacker. Back to MMA. Sorry, guys. All right. Well, Figgy is 37. I looked it up, Danny, through all that.
37, yeah. That's up there.
Damn.
So
Yeah.
I don't know. Had he gone out there and lit up Montel Jackson and then lit up the next guy, then I think he could play that card. Hey, I'm a former champ. You haven't beaten me yet. But I think by then, Dvalishvili might start looking at, no disrespect to the other bantamweights, but to featherweight or the guy's just a phenomenal run.
But look at Charles Oliveira, right? Like kind of similar situations, right? Guys that have been at the top, now they're kind of fading a little bit. Look what he did. Look what we're talking about, right? Look at Figueiredo, what he did in his performance. It's not the same.
And he's 35 with more mileage on him.
Right.
So less 2 years, but way more wear and tear. And he went out there and lit the place up, man. He became a Brazilian legend that night, in my opinion. He was already, that type of level fighter, but like one of those mythical figures. That applause, going back to that fight, sorry guys, that applause at Rio de Janeiro, they stuck around, they hung on his every word, like that was pretty amazing stuff. So great comparison there within the same card. One former champ, just brought the house down, the other one didn't. Danielle, go back to you. Alvarez versus Luque, Joel Alvarez. I know he's a frequent guest of yours on Hablemos MMA. And I think you've been calling it for a while. This guy is really he's a lightweight, but basically he's going to finish as a welterweight, and his biggest fights will be at welterweight. And he's off to a good start. Now, that said, Luque looked, like 10% of what he used to look like, but it could be that Alvarez also did that to him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's a mix of the two. Clearly, I mean, I don't think anyone thinks that Vicente Luque is in the best part of his career. He's clearly in the process of closing it out, and probably his most important work at this point is done. And then at the same time, you got a Joel Alvarez that's peaking right now. So I've been, as I said in multiple editions of the show, I've been calling for Joel Alvarez to move to 170 pounds for like so many reasons. The fact that he would have like look at the career also like Diego Lopez, like real quick. He made a name and a big splash because he fought often and he was able to like take short notice opportunities. That's really how you progress your career at a fast pace in the UFC. And the weight cut to 155 for Joel Alvarez just simply didn't allow him to do that because he had to. It was a requirement. He needed 10 weeks notice in order for him to get down to 155. And then he wouldn't be able to fight multiple times a year because, again, he could only make that weight cut once every certain amount of months. So now fighting at 170, we saw him take this really good opportunity. Main card, a guy that used to be in the top 5, made the most of it. Honestly, I think he did get robbed. It should have been a TKO win, but instead gets a decision. At least the right guy won. But yeah, this guy's legit. I still feel like he needs a little bit of filling out to do a little bit in the division. And I think that will come with time. But dude, I think this guy's going to be a contender, and I see him up there fighting the Carlos Prachis, all these other top strikers. I see him being in the top 10 fairly soon.
That's a good name. Nolan, I was thinking Chiesa moved up was successful.
Mhm.
Masvidal, same thing. He fought for the title. RDA had a decent run. I think he fought Colby, right, for the interim or something like that. So what do you think, Nolan? What can Alvarez do at welterweight? What do you think his potential is?
Yeah, I think it's pretty high. I'm actually happy that he moved up. Obviously, he had the weight issues, but he's somebody too that I think his frame is a welterweight. Like it works out well. So I almost wonder if maybe he was, we didn't see the best of him at lightweight because of the weight cut. That can go either way. So I'm excited to see him there. I think next up, you got to give him, because I don't believe Luke A is ranked anymore, right? For sure. So yeah, you got to give him somebody probably in the top 13 to 15 range. I don't know. I see Daniel Rodriguez's name there, something like that. So, I'm excited for him, but I think we need activity. I know he's had problems traveling, getting out of getting to certain countries and whatnot. I don't know if that's all been resolved. Yeah. So
the U.S. mainly.
Yeah. I hope they keep the schedule up for him. And, if he's unscathed, let's see him again. I don't know if by the end of the year will happen, but let's see him in January against somebody that's in the rankings.
Oh.
Danny, what do we know about that? Legal troubles? Is he a bad boy growing up or something?
I am not quite sure. I think he's just had a hard time getting visa to the U.S. I don't know exactly why, but yeah, that's been a thing. That's why most of his fights, we've actually seen him fight in like Abu Dhabi and in Saudi Arabia. And now he's fighting in Rio. So yeah, he's had some difficulties, but it's not like he's banned to enter the U.S. Where there's rumors of that. It's not the similar case of Khamzat Chimaev. Like he's been to the PI, he's been to Vegas, he's fought in Vegas. But yeah, I don't know exactly what the issue is, or if it's like a Spanish thing, like a Spain migratory issue or what. But yeah, he's had difficulties entering the U.S.
Okay. Guys, give me a quick highlight from Rio, and then we'll put that thing to bed. It goes.
The highlight for me was the crowd. That crowd was there from the get-go. They were loud, and they made a fight night feel as if it were a pay-per-view. That they just upped the level of the intensity. Even being at home, all you could think about was, man, I wish I was there.
Mm-hmm. And they want someone to die really, really bad, don't they?
Yeah, they do.
Ooh, vamos ahead. Danny, what was another highlight from you?
Kind of on the same boat, but Jose Aldo. Like we often talk about how the UFC often like misses the chance or misses the boat to like really celebrate its figures. And
yes,
Jose Aldo was such a big legend in the sport. Like his first retirement was super anticlimactic. Like loses to Merab Dvalishvili in like a really boring decision in like Utah or something. And then this time around, terrible matchmaking they do with him, loses another boring fight. Then we never see him again. You're like, really? That's how we say goodbye to a legend. I still think the UFC botched his exit from MMA, which is very unfortunate. But it was at least nice for him to get that moment of walking out to the cage, getting in the octagon, getting recognized in front of his home crowd, and celebrated, because this is truly a historic figure.
They need to do that for Dominic Cruz.
Huh?
Yeah.
They need to do that for Dominic Cruz. Like, I think that's a great idea, and they should do that for more fighters that haven't had that opportunity.
Yeah.
He's from San Diego, but originally from Arizona. So if they go back to Phoenix, I guess that's a great idea, Goes. And speaking of, they had 3 chances to do Aldo versus Cruz or Cejudo or someone, like another fellow legend, and they came up with Jonathan Martinez, Mario Batista, and Ayman Zahavi. Now, I won't shit too as much on the last 2 because they're kind of on a run, honestly. But they were on a run at that time.
Those were terrible bookings.
I hear you.
I could have seen Aldo Cejudo, Aldo Cruz. I mean, there's so many good matchups. Literally, in all respect to those guys, but where Jose Aldo was in his career, had no business fighting those guys.
Nolan, give me another highlight. Other than when Goes took you to Peruvian food. Best cuisine in the world, right?
That's so good, man. I need some lomo saltado or some ceviche, but not as bad as the UFC's women's bantamweight division needs Bia Mesquita. What a fresh face to have in the like that segue, by the way. But yeah, she was great. She was as advertised. A grappling legend who had made the jump over, had won an LFA title. And then she comes in, and I know there were some concerns about her striking. Some people were saying, oh, she's, overrated. People are pumping up her tires too much, like whatever. For me, I thought she looked better than I expected. I know the level of competition was maybe, Rena Alexieva is kind of on the bottom segment of that division. But I thought she looked great. I thought she looked aggressive. She tried to show off her striking. She tried to finish. And 135, it's really sad times at women's bantamweight. So for her to come in, I don't think there's much she has to go. Like there's within a few fights, she could be up there. They could escalate her up the ladder pretty quickly. So much needed, injection into the 135-pound division. Really excited to see her back. That was a stellar debut.
Danny?
Yeah, I got one thing to say, and this is a low light. You guys saw like the whole thing with Lucas Almeida? Weird as fuck, right? Like super weird. Yes, like clearly his hand was broken. It was swollen. Like you see him signing things, and it's just like this. Looks like he got stung by like 1,000 bees. Then we see the performance itself. I think there's also like that has to be brought up, and there's certainly questions around the Brazilian commission in terms of like what kind of medical screening are you doing before these guys get into the cage, because it looked like a impaired fighter going in there.
Yeah. No doubt.
I believe that something just to note, I think it's kind of important sometimes, is like the commission, I believe in Brazil, is a federation. So it's a private company that runs commissions down there. It's a little bit different than what we have here with the government sort of runs it. So I don't know, it's not, I don't think they're necessarily tied to certain regulations where if they don't follow them, they're going to have to answer to somebody. They essentially follow their own regulations. So I don't know. Maybe that's something I should follow up on. Even the UFC,
when they self-regulate, right? Like there still has to be, I don't think he should have fought.
But then if they're too strict, we don't get to hear fighters go, yeah, guys, I know you saw that result, but I went in and injured pretty bad.
That was 40%. That was 30%, man. What do you expect from me?
Sure.
Yeah, a lot of that shit last week.
And I'm not, in no way am I defending it. I think that he should not have fought that night. I would be interested to know, like, hands and feet, like what the exact rules are on that, right? So, yeah, something to look into for sure.
Whether it's a federation, an association, a commission, whatever it is, someone does still check them out, right?
Yeah.
You would think so.
And that person needs to be held accountable.
That's exactly what we're discussing right now, right? Like,
yeah, exactly. That couldn't have been more obvious.
Yeah.
I won't say names. I won't say names, but we had a fighter in the studio one time tell us they had a broken hand going into the fight, and the commission checks out the hands, and they said they squeezed the hell out of the hand. He said he just held it in. He wanted to scream, but he held it in, and that's how he was able to fight. And he won with a broken hand.
The question is, did it look like his? Because his looked bad, and that was the thing.
I don't know.
Well, that's the thing. If you can kind of like, cheat your way past the commission, I'm not saying it's okay, but in a way that kind of tells you that it was good enough, maybe, or kind of, right? Because it wasn't that bad. But if it's like that, like something so egregious, like you shouldn't be fighting, right? And as you said, like that guy won, so there's that.
Yeah. All right. Chat, listen, this is a live show, and I'm gonna read off some more comments and questions. But do me a favor, hit that like button. It helps us out a ton. And also, quick announcement: next week we start at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific, because tomorrow is the last Dana White Contender Series. And as has been the last 10 weeks, when we're done, we show the Dana White Contender Series weigh-ins, which you can do after this show's done. But we're going to go back to noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. Continuing on, we got a little bit of ground to make up. Let's start with Conor McGregor's suspension, the news announcement that came out last week. The most popular fighter ever to put on the 4-ounce gloves. He's in trouble. Well, actually, it's not so bad. Yes, Conor McGregor was suspended for 18 months by the CSAD, the Combat Sports Anti-Doping. However, the suspension is retroactive to last September 2024, which means, if you do the quick math, McGregor will be free to fight March of 2026, which, if you do the quick math, he can also fight on the White House card, which is now in June, I think June 14th of 2026. Danny Segura, let's get your thoughts first.
Yeah, this one was extremely strange, but I actually think, and we can get into it in a bit, I actually think that this might be maybe like a positive thing for McGregor, actually, because it kind of explains why he hasn't fought, which a lot of people attributed then to some other things, which could still be happening, by the way. I'm not saying that that they're not, but Yeah, this was weird. Like, first of all, we've heard very little from this organization since they split from USADA. And then once we hear stuff, specifically something around this, like he was suspended for something he did in 2024, and we're about to finish 2025. Like, Thanksgiving's coming up, and you know what I'm saying? Like, what a weird thing to announce. And you just wonder, like, there's no way it could have taken, like, because I understand there needs to be a process to figure things out and et cetera, right? And bureaucracy and this and that, but like over a year to like just figure out a suspension for missing whereabouts, I don't know.
Those 3 missing whereabouts. I mean, what was his appeal? No, I was there. I mean, clearly he wasn't there. So it wasn't like we got to get a second test or something's tainted or the supplement, look at the label. None of that. This was an easy one. And that's the thing, like we get it. You had a serious injury years ago. And leave all the legal stuff aside or whatever, but they couldn't find you 3 times. You're suspended. Okay, adjudicate it. Why did that take a whole year? The last one was in September of 2024, a whole year to just go, we now have the sentencing. It's 18 months. Make some sense out of this.
Well, that's the thing, is it doesn't make sense. I think the one thing that we can all agree on maybe is that it's a terrible look. It's a terrible look for the sport. It's a terrible look for the fighter. If this type of penalty happened to anybody else, I think that person would want to release some sort of statement, come out, talk about it a little bit. This is like a blip on Conor McGregor's radar. And that's kind of tough to stomach, that fighters can do these types of things and it's not really a big deal to them at all. And that's kind of ugly in our sport. You don't want to see that. These types of penalties. For me, missing 3 spots like that is almost worse than actually just getting caught the first time. To me, I think it's a dirtier look. So not a good thing.
You'd think that'd be the funnest part of his day too, bragging about where he was going to be. I'll be on my yacht in Monte Carlo, come find me. Nolan, can you make sense out of it? Let's hear your 2 cents.
Yeah, I can't. I try to think of explanations, right? Like obviously I think maybe with somebody like him, when there's a process going on where he's going to receive some sort of punishment, sanction, suspension, whatever you want to call it, that maybe there's some lawyers involved. Because I mean, obviously, even reading the opening line, right? It says Conor McGregor accepts an 18-month suspension. So I believe on his end, there has to be something that he signs off on. And I don't want to say agrees with it, but acknowledges that it's going to be whatever duration of time they're suspending him for. So it's confusing. It's left me, I think, with more questions than answers. There's things like, does Conor McGregor's contract extend further now? Like, I don't know. We don't see whereabouts failures a lot either. Like, that's kind of one of those things where I'm like, has this really only happened a few times? Like, we saw it with Yair one time. We saw it with Nick Diaz, I believe, one time. But it's like, does nobody else ever miss? Like, kind of what's the policy there? Why did it take so long? What does this mean for Conor? Is this a way for them to say, like, dude, you got to be doing your drug tests if you're going to actually be fighting? Like, I don't really know what the standard is. And it's even harder now, I think, with, without USADA involved, where I had USADA was not perfect, but I definitely think when things would happen, like, I could reach out and get an answer, where I'm not sure that can really happen now. So I don't know. It's really just a weird situation. And I would have liked to, I don't want to say it's too bad, but Conor did all that media recently, and then this came out. It would have been interesting if this had dropped before that to kind of hear. Not that he would have given us like a hinged necessarily answer, but it would have been interesting to at least hear his thoughts on it.
Okay, I had a chance to think about it, and I want to see if Nolan and Danny agree with Goes. Goes says it almost would have been better to just say, oh, I got popped, than the 3 whereabouts. Do you guys agree? Because the one thing I'll say is his reputation hasn't really been stained since this has come out. Like, I mean, dragged through the mud, like when people have tested positive. So what would you guys say to that?
I mean, for me, I think that, I think the whereabouts failure is not as bad in the court of public opinion. It's like it's still in the speculation realm where people can speculate why he wouldn't take those tests, but it's also Conor McGregor. You can't show up for a press conference we had him last couple weeks ago. We were supposed to interview him at 11:30 a.m. and he showed up at 7:45 p.m. So there's that fits right into his like MO. So I think him doing that for whatever reason certainly is a little bit safer than if he had that hanging over his head the whole time that, hey, you were taking something that you shouldn't have been, especially after you talk a bunch of smack about people that do.
What do you think, Danny?
Yeah, no, I think popping is actually way worse because then there's like legit proof. As Nolan mentioned, this is just speculation, and he does have a track record of being late places and just not showing up. And he's got so much money; he could have been like
times though.
Yeah, I mean, he lives on a yacht. Like he's just traveling the world. Probably had his phone. Who knows? You know what I'm saying? Like he didn't pop. That's for sure. I do think this is a not so bad look compared to if he would have like popped for a steroid. And also something that I do feel like it makes him look good. This kind of explains why we haven't seen him fight, right? Like if there was this process going on, and as Nolan mentioned, there maybe would have been lawyers involved in terms of like, does this extend his contract? This and so it could have had this whole thing could have or had a lot of repercussions. And if that's the case, then you understand there being like that bureaucracy and a lot going back and forth between them. And that's why we didn't see him fight. So he could actually, now that this is out, I don't know if he's going to talk about it, but maybe he's like, yeah, this was it. I've been dying to get back in the cage. I was ready to fight with a broken toe or whatever, but this was it. And if that's the case, maybe we there's a little bit more hope or people can have a little bit more faith in his ability to get in a cage and go through a training camp, because everything else and pointed at his lifestyle, right? And maybe because he knew he wasn't going to fight anytime soon, he is living the lifestyle that he is living, or at least to the extent that he is. So I actually think this could maybe be a positive thing for him.
As you guys were talking, now I'm thinking I see Goz's point. Because remember when Vanderlei didn't or allegedly ran, and then when John Jones hit under the mat, like and that was awful just one time. And this has been 3 times, although like Danny says, it could have just been like him blowing it off. But then why are you in it, Conor? Like get out of it and you don't have to worry about it. If you're not fighting anyone, we're not expecting you. Steve Williams in the chat says, I'm a fan after the McGregor era. I'm sick of not just us, but people talking about a guy that I never saw, but has literally been like a headache, to the sport.
Yeah, and even going forward, like I think Danny said it or somebody, like maybe that brings us closer to seeing him fight. Man, if you can't even be there, if you can't take your drug test serious enough to be there 3 different times, you ain't gonna fight. I mean, look, the main thing in being a fighter is dedication, right? Being on time for your training, all that stuff that comes with it. If this is just a blip on his radar, he doesn't care. I don't think this guy's gonna fight, dude. And when the questions start coming out as to why you missed, he's gonna get bored, and after a while, he's gonna say, "You know what's really fun? How about just being a millionaire? How about I just go back to being that?"
Yeah, that's true. Although I wouldn't know. Any of you guys got a milli?
Nope.
No, I wish.
Look at Nolan. Staying quiet. Nolan's staying quiet. He's stacking some money.
Yeah, he's stacking.
I was trying to think of a joke, but I don't got any.
I'm a millionaire in
I don't have jokes and I don't have millions.
Colombia is
between the 4 of us. Do we have a million?
Got it.
Probably not.
I'm not helping, that's for sure.
Nah,
you guys have to do the heavy lifting on that one. If the 4 of us somehow have a million, it ain't coming from me. Guys, something quick from the news cycle last week. I won't even set it up or anything. We got to get to the Vancouver card. But other than the McGregor news, what's something else that happened last week that you personally want to highlight? Let's start with you.
Big John McCarthy's back. I think that's super cool. Look, like to have a legend of the sport come back, somebody who helped build some of these rules that we have today. We talk about how difficult that job is, and a lot of times people say, well, get rid of this guy. Who are we going to replace him with? Here's a good guy to replace somebody with. This guy is a stud in our industry, and it's good to see him come back and be a referee again.
Yeah, and for like a Steve Williams who said, I don't remember, I wasn't a fan of McGregor fighting because I wasn't a fan of MMA. John McCarthy, he probably only knows him as a commentator, but he's actually one of the legendary refs who actually helped create the rules of MMA. Back in the day, first referee gig was UFC 2. Imagine that.
Mhm.
And he's a historian, and he says he feels great. He's lost 30 pounds. He does the weigh-in podcast with Josh Thompson, although that's coming to an end. He's going to break off from that. Josh is going to continue it. So that is big news. How about you, Nolan? What's something from the news cycle you want to share?
Yeah, it was an interesting week. There's a lot of options. There was Mark Vologdin and Andreas Luna Martinetti had a great fight. There was the horrible killing of Suman Mokhtarian, rest in peace. That was kind of crazy. But one of the things, just to kind of stick with the drug testing thing that we were talking about, was PFL moving away from USADA as well. Kind of got tipped off that some of the fighters had been receiving emails that they had been removed from the pool. So I reached out to both parties, and sure enough, that relationship has come to an end. The PFL is going back to kind of it seems like a version of what Bellator did, but maybe a little bit more comprehensive. But essentially, Mohegan's son, Mike Mazzulli, is going to be running drug tests, throughout the country, throughout all the series too. So like this goes from MENA and PFL Europe and, the main series as well. He said that in the 3 weeks prior that I talked to him, they tested about 65 athletes, which was more than I thought was going to come. But I guess we'll see if we ever hear anything about the drug tests. I know during the Bellator era, they were kind of, unless they really affected a fight, they were kind of kept under wraps. So we'll see what that means going forward. But it's interesting to see the swing of, everybody swung towards these big testing organizations, USADA, whatever else, and now they're kind of swinging back to the middle or the other way. So just an update on that.
Danny Segura?
Yeah, I had a conversation with Gable Stevenson this past week. The interview published yesterday, and I believe the article should publish today. He's going to be fighting at Dirty Boxing 4 at the end of the month. But what really caught my attention, I think that's obviously interesting to see sort of his striking, but he thinks he could be ready to make his UFC debut at the White House event. And I mean, on paper, it makes sense. The guy won an Olympic gold medal in wrestling for the U.S. He's one of the greatest wrestlers that the U.S. has seen. Obviously, his collegiate record is very impressive. And we know these guys don't need a ton of experience, right? Like, look at what Brock Lesnar did, and Brock Lesnar's not even close to what Gable Stevenson has achieved in wrestling. So I don't think it's crazy to think that. And if that's going to be the case, he's going to have to do a lot of catching up in these next few months. And he's doing so by, he fought in September. Now he's fighting again in October. So watch out with this guy, because I don't know, 2026 could be the year he finds himself in the UFC.
You think you see some DC parallels there? They have a similar body composition and accolades. DC didn't win an NC2A title, but he was still, had a great run at Oklahoma State. But you think he can maybe replicate that? He's starting a little sooner too than DC.
Yeah, he's very young still. He's what, like 25, 26?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think I mean we'll see how he transitions, obviously, but from the little bit that we saw from LFA, like we've seen how many like really high level wrestlers all of a sudden their wrestling like plummets when they go to MMA, because it's a little bit different. His ground and pound looked nasty. His wrestling looked good. Again, it's against lower level opposition, but so far so good, man. Like he's looking very, very good.
Mine, guys, is real quick because we're a little short on time. Goes and I covered a guy named Joey Beltran. I'm sure you guys have as well. Mm-hmm. And UFC heavyweight, and then he went on to BKFC and became a champion there. I saw a post that he did on Instagram recently, and he speaks very slowly, and he admits so on the video. But for you fans that often wonder why do the media care? Why do the fans care so much? You can tell obviously he's got like a pugilistic, not dementia, but his mind is slowing down. And again, he admits it. Now in the video, him himself says, "I don't regret it. I would do it all over again." But if you look at his feed, he's got his kid and everything, and he's still teaching. It seems like a wonderful human being doing things out in Carlsbad, California. But man, that was really, really sad to see. And I hope other fighters, kind of learn from that. That early, the early wave of fighters, and he probably came in the second or third wave, just didn't have the education that we have now. But still, look after yourselves. Again, Joey says he doesn't regret it one bit. and he can still actually formulate the sentence and speak. He just gets it out slowly, man. But it really hit hard to see that. I wish him and his family the best. All right. So Joey Beltran's his name if you want to look it up. So I know there's a lot of new fans to the sport. Hit that like button too, folks. We got 10 minutes. Let's close strong. And remember, if you're watching behind, you can always obviously watch it on the replay, and you can hit the like button too there. Anytime you see it, it doesn't just have to be on the live portion. It helps out a ton. Let's close with the preview of UFC Vancouver taking place Saturday. Middleweights are at the top of the bill. Rainier de Ridder meets Brendan Allen in the main event. Nolan, back to you, man. Paris, San Antonio, Las Vegas, Rio de Janeiro. Can the Couve keep it going? What's your excitement level for this card?
Yeah, I was looking at the card, before we hopped on here again, kind of deep diving on it. And man, I just think the fact that Anthony Hernandez went down, no offense to Brendan Allen, he's a G, he stepped up. But yeah, just having that level of main event that would have been RDR versus Anthony Hernandez, losing that was a big blow, I think. The rest of the card kind of doesn't look as sexy anymore, just the card as a whole, I should say. Some good fights, some good veteran fights, some meaningful fights. I think that the Cheeto fight is big for him. Zahabi obviously can propel himself. So I don't know. I'd give it like a 6. I know that might seem kind of mean, but that's pretty much where I'm at right now.
Danny, how about you? Excitement level?
Yeah, I would give it more like a 6.6.
How about you guys?
0.4.
I'll give it a 6.9. I think it's okay. Look, anytime you have the main event and things drop off from there, it's gonna hurt a little bit. But I kind of look at the positives, and the positives is I kind of wanted to see both RDR and Fluffy get a shot at the title, and maybe this way that might happen. And I think Brendan Allen is a game fighter to step in, so I think it'll still be good. To me, it's kind of where a fight night card should be. The main event is interesting, and then the appetizers are decent, so I'm okay with it.
Mm-hmm. What's at stake here? I mean, if RDR wins, he fights so frequently, and it does look like Nasruddin Imavov might be ahead of him unless RDR does something special. But basically, he's in line for a title, right, guys? What about Brendan Allen? He told Goz and I, hey, look, I kind of lost to a lot of these key guys, but again, staying healthy and the UFC scheduled are the implications good for Brendan Allen too, stepping on late notice? Goz, what do you think?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think Allen needs a win to kind of bring him back to life. And, when you look at that equation of the people at the top, he's got 2 losses to 3 of them, right? So that doesn't help him, but this would be a good step forward, right? Taking out a guy like RDR. And it looks like Imavov should be that guy, but RDR, should he do something pretty spectacular, you never know. I mean, how many times have we seen that happen where a guy just leapfrogs all of a sudden?
Danny, can RDR with an exciting win railroad Nasruddin Imavov?
I think he can. He has a tough job because Nasruddin Imavov has done a great job at 185 in building his resume, but I feel like RDR is a little bit more liked by the fan base, and there's a little bit more sort of charisma there, and I don't know. I think he does have a better affinity with at least the American fan base, and I think that goes a long way. So it's going to be a tough job, but if he does something here impressive against Brendan Allen, I think he's on the conversation, and I think the UFC will have a difficult decision to make.
Nolan, what's your prediction for this fight? Does it go 5 rounds? Is there a finish? Who gets their hand raised?
I think RDR will get it done inside the distance, I'll say, like late. I think that he's got more 5-round experience, more championship experience. I think I've been just super impressed with what he's done since he's come over. I think we always knew he was good, but I also think seeing it play, like we thought, look at Patchy Mix, right? Patricio, like obviously Patricio's a little bit older, but it doesn't always translate what we see outside the UFC into it. So for him to come in and kind of essentially rip through this division has been impressive. And if he adds Brendan Allen too, that would be, like Danny said, I think it's going to be about who's available, when, who's healthy, and the UFC is going to have a little bit of a jump ball situation as to who fights for the title next.
Goes, you got RDR or Allen?
I got RDR, but I think it's going to be really tough. Even if that fight hits the ground, Brendan Allen's no chicken, right? Like he can mix it up down on the ground too. So I think it'll be tough, but I think RDR will find a way to win.
Danny?
RDR. That's my
All
pick.
right. What about Mike Malott against Kevin Holland? Look, I think Holland, we know what he is, right? His talent level, welterweight, middleweight. Looks like he's back at welterweight. Let's focus on Malott, who's Canadian. What's his potential, Danny?
Geez, I don't know. We see kind of this guy as a prospect, but he's really not that young. He looks young, and he sort of has a very he doesn't really curse, and he's very nice. Is his nickname the Gentleman or no? Am I tripping?
I don't know.
But
Should be.
anyways,
Proper.
proper. That's what it is. I knew it was something like that. So like he kind of gives a little bit like this innocent vibe, and you think he's like a young kid, but the guy's I think he's like 33 or 32, something like that. So it's not like he has a ton of time in the sport left. And man, if he wants to do something big, and clearly the UFC have been promoting him, and over there in Canada they love him, he's got to do something here against Kevin Holland because the time's running out. So I don't know if I like his chances against the very top with the division. I think I'm a little bit more hesitant in his potential. For example, I see more potential in a guy like Joel Alvarez, in my opinion. But let's wait and see, right? Like I think this is what we're gonna find out, right? Sort of Kevin Holland has become that elite level type gatekeeper a little bit. So I think if he gets past them, yeah, maybe we're onto something here.
What do you think, Nolan? Do you think this could be the coming out party? Again, Holland's a big name, a tough out. And do you think he can beat Kevin Holland?
Yeah, I am picking him a lot. I will push back on one thing you said, which is that we know what Kevin Holland is. I feel like after 28 UFC fights and seeing him fight on the regional scene and for Bellator and everything else, I still don't know when Kevin Holland steps in there what Kevin Holland we're going to get. I mean, he went from the Luque fight a couple fights ago where I thought it was his best career performance, most polished, confident that I've seen him fight. And then he turns around, has an awesome fight with Daniel Rodriguez, one of the best fights of the year, but it was like one of the sloppiest fights I've seen from him ever as well. So I think Malott is his fight IQ is really high. His technique is good. I think people write him off a little bit just because he lost to Magny, which was a fight he was winning. So I am going to go with him. I feel pretty confident, but Kevin just always keeps me guessing. I'm not necessarily sure who's going to show up on fight night.
Where is Kevin Holland in his career goes? Is he a gatekeeper? Is he the guy you can call on because he can do two different weight classes? You know, we like big mouths, but we don't hear from him much lately. What is this guy now?
He's the same place he's been for the last 2 years. He's fight as often as you can, stay ready, make a paycheck, a pretty good one at this point. I think he's this era's Donald Cerrone, where you can count on him whenever you need him, and he's good enough to make the fight interesting every single time. So you know what you have with Kevin Holland.
Interesting. All right. The Cowboy Cerrone comparison. Chito Vera against Ayman Zahabi. Danny, what's at stake here? I think more obviously on the Zahabi side, but Chito Vera could just be battling, saving his career, maybe. I don't know.
I think he is a popular name. People like him, fought for the title and all that. So I don't think he's necessarily fighting for his job here. But I do think he's fighting for the idea of keeping him among the elite, kind of, or at least like the top 10. Look, if he loses here against Ayman Zahabi, I don't really think you can make a good excuse to keep Chito Vera right now in the top 10 of the division. And you really have to like the idea of him getting back to a title fight. I mean, those chances, that idea would really crumble here with a defeat. So I think he's fighting for that, for sort of relevancy in the sport. Not so much his job, but yeah, big fight for him. He hasn't looked good in some time now. And yeah, if he wants to sort of remind people he's still a dog in that division, he's got to be Ayman Zahabi.
Is Zahabi a title contender? Is he slowly getting there? Could this get him there if he wins this fight?
You know, it's so weird. He's 37. For whatever reason, like when he fights, like the results are there, right? Like he is winning, but I don't necessarily see like a future champion or someone that's really a big threat to the title. But yet again, I've been wrong about several other fighters where I think, you know, they're not so impressive. And then all of a sudden, Dricus du Plessis probably being a great example, the guy. I picked against him his entire career all the way to the belt, and even as champion, I've picked against him. But then the guy just ended up winning and becoming the champion. Would that be the case with Sahabi? Again, I don't think so, but that just fuels my argument. So yeah, I don't know. Not impressed so far, but who knows? The sport's weird. The results are there. I'll say that.
We are firing up another stream so you guys can watch the Dana White Contender Series, but this fight's too big. Goes, you're on producing duties, so I was going to go to you. Nolan, real quick, 30 seconds. Jasmine Jasudavicius of Manon Fiorot is a big fight. We got to give him at least 30 seconds. How big is this for these ladies?
Yeah, it's an important one. Again, like I always like to see these sort of fights on a card because it is very meaningful for the division. For Jasmine, this is her moment to really make a name for herself in this division, do it at home. She's somebody that could be a fresh title challenger, but Manon's so tough. You know, I think outside of Valentina, she has just made everybody look pretty silly. You know, she totally bullied Erin Blanchfield. You know, she's looked good in pretty much every time that we've seen her. Just a very physical fighter. So I do lean towards her. I think Jasmine, despite being at home, has a really tough test, but this is an important fight for the women's 125-pound division, no matter what way you look at it.
But if Jasmine gets her down, man, that ground and pound is something else. Jasmine's violent. I like it. All right, folks. Hey, so many thanks for you guys tuning in to Spinning Back Clique. And remember, next week we're back to our normal start time of noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. On the way out, if you could hit that like button, that would be awesome. Kindly consider subscribing to the channel. It's all free content. We cover every event, pre and post, and during the event sometimes. So really, we don't ask much of you if you're a hardcore fan, a junkie, if you will. Hit the subscribe, and we'll see you all next week for another edition of Spinning Back Clique. Go out and be a champion. We'll talk to you soon.